here's a great topic. I get into this a lot during the business development process, right? If a financial advisory practice is evaluating us as a marketing partner, some do, some don't care about this, but KPIs. So how do we set the right KPIs so that we can do a few things? Evaluate the partnership from a more quantitative level, and then two, evaluate our results from a quantitative level. And then you might be operating on EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System, or Pinnacle, or Soul System and Soul, or whatever else that you need to assign KPIs. Everybody gets a number, and you need to assign a KPI to the marketing team or multiple KPIs to the marketing team. So where do we start? And generally speaking, in the sales process, right, I kind of just brainstorm ideas with the business owners, or with the managing directors. What makes sense as a KPI to help them achieve their overall firm goals. And we can iron them out ahead of time, or what we'll do, and this is where I pass it off to Faustin, is say, why don't we do kind of a workshop call, or on our kickoff call, we can say, what does success look like to you, right? So like, we'll do our thing. We know kind of the playbook that works for marketing communications for RIAs, but we need to hear from you. What does success look like? And some of those things will be qualitative, like, okay, nobody's a jerk. You show up on time for meetings. We even put in a contract before that we had the right vibe with each other. And that one ended up working out really well. We worked with that client for 4 or 5 years. But let's workshop them together, because I think that's important. It'll let us demonstrate how we are a strategic partner. Anyhow, that's when I'll pass it over to Faustin and say, all right, we need to define what success looks like for this team. We're going to talk about it all together. What do you think makes sense, kind of from a quantitative marketing channels standpoint for KPIs? And so we've got a lot of ideas, but it just kind of depends on the client. So yeah, I guess Faustin, why don't you kind of walk us through some different examples, in different examples, and then also kind of high level how you would approach, kind of just how you look at this at a high level.
Yeah, absolutely. It made me laugh a little bit about the putting the vibe. We having the right vibe in
It's
the
good
contract.
vibes only.
That would have been tough to explore on a legal lens.
He's a small
to flesh
business
that out a little
attorney
bit.
who reads that in the MSA. They're like, what is
Yeah,
this? But yeah, it's good to have it
yeah.
in writing.
So I guess I'll talk through like how we start off with a client in terms of setting those KPIs and figuring out, what does success look like to them in terms of metrics. And then also I'll share some examples of sort of ongoing KPIs and how we look at KPIs differently on a quarterly basis and on an annual basis. Because we do have clients that we've been working with now for multiple years. We have a long-term client that's been over 10 years. And so we don't just set one KPI at the beginning of a partnership and then drop off, right? It's something that's consistently connected with the firm's overall goals. And so I'll just say that's like where we start. We start first with the firm's overall, it's usually a net new AUM type of goal, and sort of go back from there. And we say, okay, what is going to be the best way on a marketing front to get our firm to that goal over the next year? And we break that down. We do a full audit of all the different marketing channels. And that includes sales channels as well for the firm. So you'll break down their Google Analytics. We'll dig into what's happening on their website. We'll look through all their different social platforms, measure everything from impressions to engagements to conversations happening on LinkedIn DMs a lot of times. We'll dig into all of that, and then we'll also look and see what the firm, whether it's Salesforce or Wealthbox or Redtail, or even we have some firms that are using HubSpot to track their sales process. We'll dig into that tool as well and see, okay, how many discovery calls have been booked? What does the firm's sales process look like? How many clients are being closed, right? And how many are dropping off and need to be re-engaged? So I think that's important when you're thinking about KPIs, especially at the beginning of a new relationship. It's just to think about like what's currently happening, right? Because you can learn so much as a marketing partner from that. It very well could be that we're generating all sorts of leads and discovery meetings, but we don't have the right sales collateral to be able to take that prospect to the next stage. And that's where we focus first, right? We focus first on key deliverables in those first few months to really lean into trying to increase the conversion process there. But more often than not, everyone's coming to us because they don't have the leads themselves, right? So after that audit, we'll go back to the firm and we'll really try to dig into, we'll share the different results. We'll share quick win opportunities that we see. Maybe it's a blog post that's getting all sorts of traffic that, the firm didn't even know was getting 1,000, thousands of views every month from Google. Or, with the latest AI search with ChatGPT back in October, turning on search results, maybe the firm doesn't know that a certain page is getting a lot of traction from ChatGPT referrals, like from search results. So we'll examine that and see if there's any quick win opportunities there. But then we'll really dig into like the specific like niche that the firm is going after. Now I feel like that's pretty important for most firms. I think it's really tough. I don't know if I should go into the niche conversation here, Stephen, or not, because I know that opens up some sort of a can of worms. But at least on the marketing front, like a lot of times what we end up doing is just trying to drill down into one particular type of prospect, or at the max 2 different types of prospects. And we say, okay, where is that individual engaging across which platforms? Right. So we have a couple of tools that can do that. We also do that qualitatively through conversations with our clients. And we actually ask them straight up, like, where do you consume information, like your news around finances? Where do you go? What platforms are you using? And we take that into account in terms of how we're thinking about our content. Then once we do that, we say, okay, let's look at that net new AUM goal again, and let's break that down on a quarterly basis and say, okay, based on our current conversion rate, let's backfill, let's see how many leads we need on a quarterly basis at what sort of average AUM level to be able to get us to those goals. And then let's say, okay, based on those quarterly KPIs or number of discovery calls that we need, here's what we're going to be focusing on in terms of the actual social platform, whether it be, let's say LinkedIn, for instance. We know that our target niche audience is using LinkedIn. So we're going to focus on these particular numbers in LinkedIn. Let's say impressions, for instance, or let's say profile visits, or let's even say followers for one of your like managing partners at your firm. We're going to say, we know that if we get these numbers right for this quarter, we can see that connection between our overall discovery calls, which will then connect us with our overall number of clients closed, which is going to get us closer to that AUM goal. So we start with the audience. We think through how to, share content to that particular audience. We set specific like marketing metrics on a quarterly basis that we know is going to connect to the number of discovery calls being booked. And then we are able to sort of take back and do a quarterly review with our client. So we do like at the 4-month mark when we start with a new client, we do a look back and see how the partnership's going. And then every quarter after that, we'll go back and look and see what those marketing metrics are and see how we need to either alter them or try a new experiment for the next quarter that's going to get us closer to the mark. And we'll keep going there on an ongoing basis.
To add a cliche phrase, what gets measured gets managed. I think it's a way for us to just try to double down on what's working and then try to eliminate what's not. And the second piece of that is really important too, because you can chase vanity metrics a lot too. I've been guilty of it myself. It's like, it could be anything. Yeah, LinkedIn impressions, let's say. But I'm getting a lot of LinkedIn impressions from developers in India and Pakistan. Like, that's not really going to help my business. So I could care less, So in that case, we've just picked the wrong KPI. So I think it's important to kind of, again, like workshop those. And then, great point. Start with your audience. I think that's really key and easy to forget. Sounds really simple. But as you start talking, getting all these ideas and kind of, seeing what your colleagues are doing and so on, it's easy to forget, to start with the audience and then build the KPIs around them. And or start with kind of overall business goals. Yeah, usually net new AUM or new revenue, or sometimes it's number of households too. That could be a KPI that you kind of start with the end in mind, and then build out from there. So yes, I think those are all great points.
Yeah, and just like a example of a client we've been working with, I think 7 or 8 months now. And by the way, that we get asked all the time, especially by the firms that understand the value of content marketing so much. Like they're like, we just want to know the channels. We don't even know what to measure, right? In terms of the different channels, they're like, they know they should be measuring something, but they're not sure what to measure, and completely understand, right? That's why you outsource your marketing to experts. But just like a client we've been working with for 7 or 8 months. we are seeing a correlation and a connection between a couple of the higher up founder and managing partner advisors in terms of their personal brand building, leading to a direct connection with firm discovery calls and new clients that are coming in, right? And we've seen that over the last like 3 to 4 months. So we're kind of shifting gears a little bit moving into Q2 with them, where we're looking specifically for metrics like the individual advisors following from a particular type of audience on LinkedIn, right? Because we're seeing a connection between the more times we're posting content that's directed at that target audience, we should see a connection between that and him growing his following on LinkedIn. And we think over time, over months, we should see a connection between that and more leads for the firm themselves. I've already
Absolutely.
seen like anecdotally all sorts of comments that are happening on the post and bringing in like referrals from people we didn't even know existed. So that's a good example of like one KPI. Then another KPI is how many queries on the website, like on Google, are leading to actual visits of the website. Because we know now in 2025, something like half of all searches are branded queries, meaning that somebody knows the brand from another channel before they even get onto Google. They're not discovering the firm like they would have 10 years ago on Google. They know the firm because they see the posts on LinkedIn, they see the posts on Instagram, they see them hear them on a podcast, and they're going to
Or their
Google and
friend said,
typing
"Hey,
in.
go," or their friend says, "Hey, go check out, my financial advisor, like, check out this firm." And then they at least know the name of the firm or the name of the financial advisor, then they type that into Google. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so so our metric for Q2, one of the things that we're tracking is because of all this, because of our focus across this omni-channel approach, we're measuring that by number of people that are either searching for the firm name or these individual advisors that we're focusing on for personal brand awareness, because we can see clicks into from the person's name into the site. We can also see clicks from the firm name onto the site. And that is what we want to see increasing, because we understand attribution is so crazy in 2025 that someone can see across 5 different channels the name of the firm for months before ever raising their hand or visiting the website, right? But we should expect to see over time more people searching those branded names. And that kind of, and so just that just gives an example, Stephen, of like, it's definitely case by case per firm. These aren't like blanket KPIs, but it's like in each firm based on who we're going after and specifically what kind of goals we're trying to reach. We set quarterly KPIs that then can be measured and tracked.
Perfect. Love it. All right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Well, I think that's enough of a diatribe for today. Hopefully, we were able to offer some insights on what KPIs we like to track and how it varies on a case to case basis based on each firm's specific audience that they're going after. Stephen, you want to offer any closing thoughts on it before we break?
Yeah, I think I would just say parting 2 cents. If you haven't already thought about this or have some KPIs in place, try to keep it simple to start. And the second key would be try to tie it back to your overall business plan, that you and your partners have agreed on. Generally speaking, right, that's increase in revenue or increase in AUM. But even if it's just one KPI that you start with that we can tie to and kind of rally around, even that would be really helpful for us to kind of align and to be a true kind of marketing partner for your firm. So yeah, hopefully some of that was helpful. And yeah, look forward to hearing your feedback on KPIs.